What had seemed a silver plate was in reality a great mirror set in the wall. A confusing system of copper like tubes jutted out from the wall above it, bending down toward it at right angles. Glancing into these tubes, Murillo saw a bewildering array of small mirrors. He turned his attention to the larger mirror in the wall and ejaculated in amazement. Peering over his shoulder, Conan grunted. They seemed to be looking through a broad window into a well-lighted chamber. There were broad mirrors on the walls with velvet hangings between. There were silken couches, chairs of ebony and ivory, and curtained doorways leading off from the chamber. And before one doorway, which was not curtained, sat a bulky black object that contrasted grotesquely with the richness of the chamber. Murillo felt his blood freeze again as he looked at the horror which seemed to be staring directly into his eyes. Involuntarily, he recoiled from the mirror, while Conan thrust his head truculently forward till his jaws almost touched the surface, growling some threat or defiance in his own barbaric tongue. "In Mitra's name, Nabonidus," gasped Murillo, shaken. "What is it?" "That is Thak," answered the priest, caressing his temple. "Some would call him an ape, but he is almost as different from a real ape as he is different from a real man. His people dwell far to the east in the mountains that fringe the eastern frontiers of Zamora. There are not many of them, but if they are not exterminated, I believe they will become human beings in perhaps 100,000 years. They are in the formative stage. They are neither apes, as their remote ancestors were, nor men, as their remote descendants may be. They dwell in the high crags of well-nigh inaccessible mountains, knowing nothing of fire or the making of shelter or garments or the use of weapons. Yet they have language of a sort, consisting mainly of grunts and clicks. I took Thak when he was a cub, and learned what I taught him much more swiftly and thoroughly than any true animal could have done. He was at once bodyguard and servant, but I forgot that being partly a man, he cannot be submerged into a mere shadow of myself, like a true animal. Apparently his semi-brain retained impressions of hate, resentment, and some sort of bestial ambition of its own. At any rate, he struck when I least expected it. Last night he appeared to go suddenly mad. His actions had all the appearance of bestial insanity, yet I know that they must have been the result of long and careful planning. I heard a sound of fighting in the garden, and going to investigate, for I believed it was yourself being dragged down by my watchdog, I saw Thak emerge from the shrubbery, dripping with blood. Before I was aware of his intention, he sprang at me with an awful scream and struck me senseless. I remember no more, but can only surmise that, following some whim of his semi-human brain, he stripped me of my gown and cast me still living into the pits. For what reason, only the gods can guess. He must have killed the dog when he came from the garden, and after he struck me down, he evidently killed Joker, as you saw the man lying dead in the house. Joker would have come to my aid, even against Thak, who he always hated. Murillo stared in the mirror at the creature who sat with such monstrous patience before the closed door. He shuddered at the sight of the great black hands, thickly grown with hair that was almost fur-like. The body was thick, broad, and stooped. The unnaturally wide shoulders had burst the scarlet gown, and on these shoulders Murillo noted the same thick growth of black hair. The face peering from the scarlet hood was utterly bestial, And yet Murillo realized that Nabonidus spoke truth when he said that Thak was not wholly a beast. There was something in the red, murky eyes, something in the creature's clumsy posture, something in the whole appearance of the thing that set it apart from the truly animal. That monstrous body housed a brain and soul that were just budding all fully into something vaguely human. Murillo stood aghast as he recognized a faint and hideous kinship between his kind and that squatting monstrously, and he was nauseated by a fleeting realization of the abysses of bellowing bestiality up through which humanity had painfully toiled. "Surely he sees us," muttered Conan. "Why does he not charge us? He could break this window with ease." Murillo realized that Conan supposed the Murillo to be a window through which they were looking. "He does not see us," answered the priest. "We are looking into the chamber above us. That door that Thak is guarding is the one at the head of these stairs. It is simply an arrangement of mirrors. Do you see those mirrors on the walls? They transmit the reflection of the room into these tubes, down which other mirrors carry it to reflect it at last on a large scale in this great mirror." Murillo realized that the priest must be centuries ahead of his generation to perfect such an invention. But Conan put it down to witchcraft and troubled his head no more about it. "I constructed these pits for a place of refuge as well as a dungeon," the priest was saying. "There are times when I have taken refuge here and through these mirrors watched doom fall upon those who sought me with ill intent." "But why is Thak watching that door?" demanded Murillo. "He must have heard the falling of the grating in the tunnel. It is connected with bells in the chamber above. He knows someone is in the pits, and he's waiting for him to come up the stairs. Oh, he has learned well the lessons I've taught him. He has seen what happened to men who come through that door when I tugged at the rope that hangs on yonder wall, and he waited to mimic me." "And while he waits, what do we do?" demanded Murillo. "There is naught we can do except watch him. As long as he is in that chamber, we dare not ascend the stairs. He has the strength of a true gorilla and could easily tear us all to pieces. But he does not need to exert his muscles. If we open that door, he has but to tug that rope and blast us into eternity." "How?" "I bargained to help you escape," answered the priest, "not to betray my secrets." Murillo started to reply, then stiffened suddenly. A stealthy hand had parted the curtains of one of the doorways. Between them appeared a dark face whose glittering eyes fixed menacingly on the squat form in the scarlet robe. "Petrius!" hissed Nabonidus. "Mitra, what a gathering of vultures this night is!" The face remained framed between the parted curtains. Over the intruder's shoulder, other faces peered, dark, thin faces, alight with sinister eagerness. What do they hear?" muttered Murillo, unconsciously lowering his voice, although he knew they could not hear him. "Why, what would Petrius and his ardent young nationalists be doing in the house of the Red Priest?" laughed Nabonidus. "Look how eagerly they glare at the figure they think is their arch enemy. They have fallen into your error. It should be amusing to watch their expressions when they are disillusioned." Murillo did not reply. The whole affair had a distinct unreal atmosphere. He felt as if he were watching the play of puppets, or as a disembodied ghost himself, impersonally viewing the actions of the living, his presence unseen and unsuspected. He saw Petrius put his finger warningly to his lips and nod to his fellow conspirators. The young nobleman could not tell if Thak was aware of the intruders. The ape man's position had not changed as he sat with his back towards the door through which the men were gliding. They had the same idea as you, Nabonidus was muttering in his ear. Only their reasons were patriotic rather than selfish. Easy to gain access to my house now that the dog is dead. Oh, what a chance to rid myself of their menace once and for all.